Hello, everyone. Today we have a great interview for you with Amie. Amie is an RN who struggled with POTS and mast cell activation syndrome for many, many years. But 5 years later, now after graduating the Transform program, we are going to do a reveal of how Amie is doing now.
Wow, this is a blast from the past because 5 years ago, I did her interview. And I think it might even be in the same location, same bat time. We'll see. But I can't wait. At popular demand, we're going to be presenting a 5-year reveal with Amie. Here we go.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this special live event, Transform Table Talk Live. This is kind of a by special request interview, Dr. Maggie, because last week we were talking all about the biggest pitfalls as it relates to mast cell activation syndrome. And Amie was on this in the audience saying, I struggled with this, but I graduated 5 years ago and look how I'm doing now. And the audience was kind of going wild. What's going on with Amie? So we can kind of really see how people get results through the Transform program and maintain them over time.
So I think it's really an important topic. Last week, when we did the pitfalls that doctors fall into in dealing with mast cell, I think it's interesting is that we have a huge amount of people that have gone through our programs and with impossible to diagnose and treat diagnoses all the time, right? And I find that people go into this thing about how they don't get outcome or results dealing with doctors or even functional doctors. And then they say they want to be realistic about the results that they want to get. So sometimes when we have alumni that share some of their results, it does seem shocking, right? And I am really big, Anne, on real people, real outcomes, right? Real people, real data, real outcomes. So I'm really excited because it's now 5 years later, and I would love to bring Amie on and let's go into this case study and see where she was and where she is today. Ta-da-da-da.
And here we have Amie. Amie, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining last week. I know you were enjoying the conversation last week because you could relate to so much of what we were talking about as it relates to mast cell activation syndrome. So we want to hear a little bit more about your story. Why don't you first start off by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your life?
Yeah, so I am an RN. I actually have been having symptoms since I was 9 years old. I started off with issues with mast cell disorder as a kid, which was brushed off kind of as you have allergies and was put on so many antihistamines that honestly most of my teen summers were a blur. I was sleeping most of them because I was on so many medications.
Wow.
As I got older, I ended up with an Epstein-Barr infection, which laid me out for almost a year. And then my POTS actually started with that infection and did not get better.
Interesting.
And that was in 2011. And I joined the program in 2019.
And you've been dealing with this for a very long time.
A very long time. Yeah. Pretty much essentially my whole life.
I want to hear about the first symptoms. You mentioned as a child you had some mast cell kind of symptoms. What were those?
Yeah, so I would react to everything. Nobody could predict when I was going to have a reaction. I would get hives all the time. I would be itchy all the time. I would be swollen. I would wake up, my whole face would be swollen. My lips would be swollen. My family would go on vacation. And of course I would be, reacting to everything. And, it was always very unpredictable and scary. I was in the emergency room a lot with, anaphylactic type reactions.
That is scary because you're wondering when's the time it's going to be life-threatening? When am I going to stop breathing? What is going on here? And you're not getting any answers. And then to see the problem get worse after you had that infection with Epstein-Barr, now we've got a whole new set of problems with POTS. And Dr. Maggie, I know that POTS is something that people try to get help with, and they go to specialists. And they're just not able to get answers. But this is something that you see so often, and they'll come to you as a quote unquote last resort, after they go to all of the big hospitals and they maybe get a diagnosis, but then they get no help, they come to you. What would you tell somebody who's out there dealing with POTS about what you know about it?
Well, I first want to give a definition to people so they know what we're talking about, because I think there's a misunderstanding in the medical community and in the lay public on what POTS is. POTS is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And when you think about that name, orthostatic means that with positional changes, your blood pressure can change, which will make you dizzy, unstable, unsteady, faint, fatigued. And then tachycardia, people think heart rate will start to race. So when you think about blood pressure and you think about heart rate, that diagnosis and treatment of that clearly would, in the conventional world, fall to the cardiologist. And I'm going to have people type in chat right now. How many of you identify with the symptoms I just talked about? Whether it's vertigo, dizziness, tinnitus ringing in the ear, blood pressure changes up and down, right? Stability when you're walking, feeling faint, right? Or have fainted. How many of you have heart racing, palpitations, irregular or super fast heart rate, and have been to the ER and have been to the cardiologist and have been told that you're fine, nothing is wrong, right? Or you go through a diagnostic rigmarole, and a lot of people will. They go to the primary care doctor who sends them to the cardiologist, who may then send them to Mayo Clinic to quote unquote see if they qualify for a diet for this diagnosis of POTS, right? And the only treatment for POTS, if you're lucky, I guess, is a prescription of a heart medication called beta blocker, which slows down the heart, right? So it decreases the amount of fast heart rate that you have. But the side effect is what? It lowers your blood pressure, making you more dizzy and faint. So does that make any sense? So my question really is for people is how many of you are in the diagnostic nightmare of this, trying to get a diagnosis? How many of you have been diagnosed and have been told, oh, I'm so sorry, you got confirmed with a diagnosis and we can't help you? Or number 3, we can prescribe this medication that's not really going to help you. How many of you have been through that rigmarole with having POTS? Type it in chat. Share your experiences. Stacy's already seeing her, all of them, everything that you're saying, right? Olga is saying me, right? Teresa is watching from Portugal. And then I have Terry who's watching from YouTube who says she's been told you're fine. It's fine. Everything is fine. Talk about medical gaslighting, right? And then Heather is jumping in from YouTube. All of you guys that are watching from YouTube, make sure you click the link to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified every single time. And if anybody that are watching right now, somebody else that could benefit from seeing this, put their name in the comment section right now, whether it's YouTube or Facebook, go for it, right? So Heather says, I have POTS, mast cell EDS, or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a joint disorder. And then I just have to deal. Really?
No, you don't. No, you don't just have
not on my watch, not on Ann's watch, not on Amy's watch.
Because I think so many people watching Dr. Maggie are going to really relate to Amy's story. And Amie, I think it's going to be fascinating to find out what were some of the linchpins for you that got you feeling so much better, because here we are 5 years later and I know you're doing better. So if it's okay with you, Dr. Maggie, let's find out a little bit more about what Amie dealt with regards to her POTS, because it sounds like this was between your mast cell and your POTS, a 20 plus year. Is that accurate?
Over 20 years, yeah.
Of feeling sick, not feeling well. So once the POTS started to really kick into high gear, you were working as a nurse. So that, I imagine, could become really challenging to continue to work. And I want to hear about how the symptoms progressed and what that was like living your life.
Yeah. So, I was actually really fortunate to work with a team that was so caring and honestly placed chairs in the hallway every 20 feet. Because it would take me about 20 minutes to walk from one end of the hall to the other, which is probably about 1,000 feet. I would have to stop and sit so I wouldn't pass out and faint. I'd feel super lightheaded between every chair, which was really frustrating. It became impossible to do my job. I did have to quit and take some time off. I took a leave of almost 9 months.
Wow. We can't stress how life debilitating this had become. You had to quit your job. You said, I can't do this anymore. You were in charge of taking care of other people and you couldn't even take care of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was that like for you emotionally to have to step away from something? I assume you worked very hard to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I had been in healthcare my whole life from the time I was 15. So, to be looking at, an almost 15-year-long career and having to stop providing for my family and not being able to care for my children. It was relying on everybody around me to do, just very basic tasks that should have fallen on my lap. Mm-hmm. I was fortunate to have really wonderful supportive people, but, it didn't help the fact that I was in bed and doing nothing. Mm-hmm. Obviously very depressing, very difficult to, want to continue going on. You really, there were some days where it was just like, what is the point of living if I'm just laying in bed all the time?
I can completely understand that. I
Mhm.
want to hear then about your process of seeking out medical help, getting diagnoses, and what kind of help did they provide for you? Dr. Maggie, you have something to add?
Yeah, before we do that, I'm going to ask right now, when I listed the symptoms for POTS, right, with the blood pressure change, dizziness, with the heart rate irregular or fast, I want to know out there, how common do you guys think those symptoms are out there? Do you think that's common or do you think that's rare? And the reason I ask this is because POTS is considered rare in the medical world. Okay. I want to know, looking at your own experiences and those around you, do you guys think it's common or rare? Everybody who's watching, type in chat right now and take a vote. And then Amie, I mean, you're a nurse and you had friends who were doctors. How was your reception to your symptoms in your diagnostic process?
Yeah, so I went, from doctor to doctor. I actually was called out by a doctor at my local facility that I was becoming a frequent flyer and maybe needed to seek some mental health, help, because I was clearly not getting the care I needed. I was being told that your labs look fine. You look great. Your vitals look great. There's nothing wrong with your vitals. Of course, when I was sitting in the office and not doing anything, yeah, my heart rate was okay. Have me stand up and take my heart rate. It would go through the roof. So I mean, running from allergists to cardiologists to ENTs to literally, I think I went through every single specialist, GI, everywhere. And of course, everybody had the same response. Like, you're young, you look good.
Hmm.
You look great.
You look healthy. And like Terry said, you must be a hypochondriac. It might be in your head.
Oh, yeah. I was referred to mental health services on multiple occasions.
Okay, this is freaking BS to me. Excuse me, I'm a fan of the cursey words. I'm going to get a little cursey right now. It gets hot under my collar. How does someone as smart, right, RN in the medical field, why do we even, and woman, right, this is all to me signs of medical gaslighting. And it makes me really hot under the collar. And Amie, your experience is my experience. I'm an MD. And when I went through my symptoms, dealing with Hashimoto's, dealing with fibromyalgia, dealing with mixed connective tissue disorder, I was told the same thing, which was like, get on antidepressants, get on therapy, right? Get on anti-anxiety meds. And so my question is for people is, I have a saying about how medical gaslighting is at an epidemic level. I have 3Ds. What is the 3Ds of medical gaslighting? I call them the 3 dick moves. That's medical gaslighting. So anybody listened last week? The 3Ds. Number 1 is deny. Deny your symptoms are real. Number 2, dismiss them. Oh yeah, they're real, but they're not a big deal. They're all in your head. And then number 3 is delay. Oh, we'll see how it goes in the next 6 months. Lose 30 pounds and we'll see how it is. Oh, we'll refer you to somebody 6 months from now, right? So deny, dismiss, and delay. Those are the 3 really clear signs of medical gaslighting. So you experienced all 3 of those.
Oh, over and over and over again for 20 years.
And were you ever offered any kind of treatment, any kind of help, anything that you think made any difference at all?
I was offered a lot of drugs. None of them really made any difference. And I'm not a real big, they're offering me antidepressants, they're offering me anti-anxiety meds, they're offering me like all of these drugs that would make it, some of them were pretty heavy meds, even as much as opioids. And I'm like, I don't think I need an opioid for this problem. I don't think it's going to fix my problem. And so, I mean, I was offered a lot of medication that, some of the things I started taking and I didn't, some of them made it worse. Some of them didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, really, truly, I didn't find anything that was, an aha, this is great, perfect. I finally figured, the silver bullet, figured it out. There was none of that,
And that is the frustrating thing for so many others in your position as well. And I imagine you did seek out, you were sent to a cardiologist as well, as Dr. Maggie alluded to, many people with POTS are, and that was unfruitful for you.
Well, and how many go to Mayo Clinic? I think you were offered Mayo Clinic as well, right?
Cardiology was like, I don't think there's anything we can do. We can send you down to Mayo. You might get a diagnosis, but they probably aren't going to be able to do anything either. They don't have a program or a medication. There's nothing out there for this.
So it's to get a diagnosis. A lot of people think I'm going to go to some delay. I'm going to get to some specialty clinic like Mayo, and somehow that's going to be a solution. But the thing is, they just confirm your diagnosis and say, yep, you have a diagnosis. Sorry, we can't help you. There's not much we can do. That's the reality. And yet people don't realize that that's what happens. But 6 years or 6 months later, they get to Mayo, they get the diagnosis. Yep, that's what you got. And I have a question around that because we had a post in the Facebook group that went crazy viral on Saturday, and it was about, about medical gaslighting. And people said the same thing about POTS and mast cell. They said they went to one of these specialty clinics and was just told, yep, I'm here to confirm your diagnosis and that there's nothing we can do to help you.
Thousands of people were chiming in on that, Dr. Maggie, because that just shows you how big of a problem this truly is. So many people, in fact, Lisa saying, I've dealt with all those gaslighting, bounced from specialist to specialist. They may acknowledge the symptoms, then they tell you to come back if it gets worse. So you're not ever getting any help. At the very least, you're lucky if they even acknowledge you have an issue. So going from there, then, it sounds like you weren't getting help from any of the specialists. You're feeling frustrated. Your symptoms are getting worse and worse. You have to stop working. You were at a breaking point, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. I was literally looking for anything that could help at this point. I was grasping at straws, and Dr. Maggie ended up showing up on my Facebook page, and I started watching her videos, and I started watching some of her testimonials. And there was one testimonial in particular that actually struck a chord with me. It was Molly's. And
gosh,
yes, Miss Molly. And that is
another nurse. Molly's another nurse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
she is. And so that was what made me just pick up the phone and say, okay, what is the worst thing that you're going to tell me? You know what the worst thing you're going to tell me is? I'm sorry, I don't think I can do anything for you. That's the worst thing, because that's what everybody else was saying. There's nothing we can do. That was the worst thing I was going to hear from you. So there was nothing to lose by picking up that phone and having a conversation with you face to face and saying, here's what I have going on. Here's what I've done. Here's the thousands of dollars I have spent on medical care to this point.
Yeah.
I have to do something differently. And we had a conversation, you, me, and my husband sat down and had a conversation in this bedroom.
This is where it all went down. Just so you guys know, 5 years ago, this is where it went down. Was it around the same time?
It started January 19th of 2019.
What?
We're talking about almost 5 years to the date. Okay, so here you are 5 years later, and I can't wait to hear about this journey that you've been on to health because of it. But before we get there, did you have reservations? I mean, you said, what did you have to lose just picking up the phone, but did you have reservations actually joining the program?
Because you've been through so many specialists and you've been through so many doctors, and everybody has said, well, I think we might be able to help. And Maggie told me straight out, she's like, you're either all in or you're all out. Like, I can do this.
Are we done with this shit? We done with this shit.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what you told me. You're like, are you done? Are you ready to be done with this?
I said, are we done talking about shit that didn't work or not? Or are we going to start talking about the stuff that's going to work? Like,
exactly.
Right there.
Yep.
I haven't changed a bit.
You want to feel better.
I have not changed a bit on that in 5 years.
Please never change, Dr. Maggie. Please change. We need you just as you are. Okay. Yeah. So if you would have rated yourself, it sounds like on a life debilitating scale, 1 to 10, unable to function, it seems like in your life, where would you have been 1 to 10 before the program?
Probably about an 8.5.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad.
And let's just get right to it. Where would you say you are today on that same scale?
Oh man, maybe like a 0.25.
0.25. I'll take that to the bank.
I mean, it is so exciting and refreshing to hear that there is an answer for this. There is a way to get help from this, and you're proof of it, as was Molly, who you watched, as are so many others who we get to talk to who are dealing with POTS and mast cell. So let's talk about what made the difference, because this isn't, Dr. Maggie, while she is many things, she's not a magician. Okay. She doesn't have a magic wand that she just waves it over you and everything's all good. There is actual science and your personalized data to back up these results. So what made such a difference for you in feeling better?
So the biggest thing that I found was food mapping. I was down to eating like 5 foods because that was the only 5 foods I felt comfortable with. Those were my safe foods. And even they were starting to whittle down. And so the food mapping was huge. I think the biggest thing on the food mapping was I only had a couple foods that showed up. I didn't have hardly anything that showed up.
And that was shocking for you because you had, it sounds like, food trauma when you're only eating 5 foods because that's all you felt comfortable eating because you were so worried about reactions. So only a handful of foods then showed up. That must have been shocking.
Just a few, just a couple. It wasn't very many. And honestly, it was foods that I was still consuming, obviously, because that's why I was having all these reactions. So the food mapping was huge for me. And then the biggest piece with that food mapping was blood sugar control. Mm-hmm. And literally within about 7 days, I had about 75% of my symptoms completely gone.
Hold on.
Let's repeat that.
I could take a full shower. Like I could do everything I wanted to pretty much for the most part after that first week. And it was shocking. So, you know, when you feel that good after 7 days and you haven't felt that good in 20 years, you're waiting for the ball to drop is what you're waiting for. Yeah, the ball never dropped.
So I'm going to say this, and all of you guys, please take notes. Really important. Okay. POTS is not a cardiology or a heart problem. Okay. POTS is really a big blood sugar problem. It's these swings of blood sugar that go up throughout the day, and you may be thinking you're eating healthy. You may be eliminating a bunch of good stuff and all that. But the fact is that one of the major mechanisms is it's a blood sugar instability problem, which means it's going up and down throughout the day all the time. And that creates these blood pressure changes and these heart rate changes. And there are other pieces to it, but fundamentally, that is one of the major issues with POTS. Again, does not belong to the cardiologist. It is a blood sugar problem. Then who the hell does it belong to? No specialist is here to deal with blood sugar swings. And so that's why people get cart to cart all over the place. And I tell people, and you've heard me say this, which is that if someone learned how to master the blood sugar, meaning stabilize it throughout the day so that there's no highs and no lows, I say at least 50% of POTS symptoms will be gone within weeks. And here, Amie said within the first week, 75% of symptoms are gone. Here's proof. Winner, chicken dinner right here. Proof, right?
Yeah, you say that all the time. And so that if that's the average, and some people are even better than 50%.
Yeah.
In 1 week. I mean, and I know that for you, Amie, that must have seemed inconceivable because you're saying things like, you know, I was able to take a shower for the first time, things that we would have taken so for granted before having problems like this. But it is so critical to your daily life. I could take a shower by myself after that first week. That must have felt like such a win for you.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Just simple tasks, being able to cook dinner, standing up long enough to cook a meal, being able to sit, you know, even just sitting on the couch and watching a movie with my kids for 2 hours. It's just, like I said, like it was so crazy just how fast I felt better that I was waiting for it to go bad again, and it didn't. And so I'm just so grateful. But yeah, you couldn't, you know, it's hard to conceive that can happen, but it did.
I want to make a connection here, which is now I have questions in the chat about mast cell activation syndrome. And that's where there's a ton of histamine or allergic type responses to a variety of seemingly foods or environmental causes that can cause a wide variety of symptoms, including like flushing hands, rash, right, asthma, all that. But there is, believe it or not, mast cell and POTS are really connected. I'm going to draw a line to connect the two. Everybody pay attention. So when someone has mast cell or histamine problems, they're responding to some of the foods. This is why we're talking about food mapping right now. What happens is the food, the body doesn't like it, sees it as an allergen, and then it creates histamines. Histamines causes your blood vessels to expand. We call that vasodilation. That means it causes local swelling, right? But also a drop in blood pressure. Ooh. And then now you wonder why some people with POTS have a ton of food allergies. Some people with a ton of food allergies or mast cell will have a ton of POTS-like symptoms because histamine fluctuations will rapidly change blood pressure and will rapidly cause your heart to compensate by beating faster. So it's one of the underlying causes of POTS then, histamine issues with food and food allergies. And the answer is yes, yes, and hell yes.
But no other doctor's talking about this, Dr. Maggie. I mean, no one else is mentioning this. And I would be willing to bet, Amie, no one ever mentioned this to you, any kind of connection prior to you meeting Dr. Maggie.
No, it was a huge aha moment for me when we went through that module. And I was just like,
it all makes sense now. Yeah. And you think about your whole life of dealing with these struggles from the time of a child and what that must have been like to not being able to do all of the things that you wanted to do and being just like all of your friends because you were dealing with these issues.
Yeah.
And suddenly, oh my goodness, you were shining a light on this because Dr. Maggie has made those connections where others haven't.
Well, and you said you were down to 5 foods. Why were you down to 5 foods? Is it because of elimination diet, prior testing, provider recommendation, your own Google mania? What was the reason you were down to 5 foods?
fear.
Yeah.
Oh,
Fear. Because I had had so many food reactions that I was afraid to branch out. And I had found, just like I knew if I ate chicken per se, I wasn't going to have a reaction. And so it was a safe food. And so a lot of it was, even just the mindset piece of it, the fear surrounding having one of those reactions and, putting yourself in a little bubble that's comfortable because that's where I felt safe.
I get that. I think a lot of people can relate to that. I included can relate to that prior to going through the program myself as well, because you start to think, okay, it's not worth the anxiety. It's not worth the fear to even try these foods because that is just as debilitating as the symptoms themselves. So how liberating, I imagine it was once Dr. Maggie went through your food program with your food mapping with you to see, okay, it's just a handful of foods. Those are my sensitivities. I'm going to take the plunge and expand my diet.
Expand, not restrict more.
Yeah. What was that like for you? Because people do think, oh, I don't want the food testing. I'm going to have to eliminate so many things. But so often it's the opposite where your whole world of possibilities opens up. So once you had that confidence and you had the science to back it up and Dr. Maggie telling you, you've got this, you can eat these foods. Did you start to kind of open your world back up a little bit more?
What happened?
Yeah. So, obviously with Dr. Maggie and the nutrition team, tailored a diet that was, for me specifically. It was very individualized and I got some food challenges in there. Like, okay, I want you to try this week. I'm going to give you this recipe and I want you to take,
through the
try
fear.
it. Yeah. And so there was, that mindset work around it. Plus also knowing I had a nutrition team and a doctor who really had my best interest at heart. They were not going to put me in a position where I was going to get sicker. And I fully, truly, trusted the fact that there was a process and I needed to follow it. And given the right tools and, the right information, then I was able to, I think there's only maybe like 4 or 5 that I don't eat now.
It's like the opposite.
It's the opposite, totally.
And that helps you with your family life and your social life as well, probably, because you're not exactly the fun person to go out to eat with if you can't eat anything. So now you can be at family gatherings and probably partake, and you can go out with friends. I mean, just that aspect alone of not feeling socially isolated when it comes to this stuff is also a big contributing factor to your happiness, I imagine. Is that the case for you?
I'm a total foodie. I love food. So it was.
I've been following Amie as a Facebook friend for the last 5 years, and the amount of posts you have around food. And by the way, she grows. I can't believe how much vegetables you grow now. Not she's working in a garden, because how many hundreds of pounds or thousands did you make this summer?
Over 800, yeah.
800 pounds of vegetables she grew, canned, prepared, froze. Come on.
That's
It was so fun seeing you really enjoy growing, cooking, and eating your food again. It's been amazing.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Because like I said, I'm a total foodie. I love food. It's so nice to go on vacation and be like, yeah, we can go check out this restaurant. That would be great. This place looks delicious. Okay, yeah, we're going in there. You don't have to be worried. I don't have to be worried about it anymore, which is super liberating for both me and my family. I'm more fun. I'm way more fun now.
Who wants their fun back in chat? I'm just going to say, who wants fun back? Whether you're the fun or you want to have fun, type in chat if you want your fun back. I hear that as like this dream list for somebody. I want to have fun again. Type in chat if you want to have fun again. And you're about to say something.
Well, yeah, no, you mentioned the mindset being such a big piece of it. I think for people who don't understand what the Transform program is all about, maybe you could share a little bit about how mindset is weaved throughout this program and really helped you on this journey of feeling more comfortable. You had the data, and that's one piece, but you mentioned that mindset was a key for you as well. So what is that like when you're going through the Transform program?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a really holistic program, which is really awesome because it really does dive into, your mindset as well. And, when you have been sick for so long, it is hard to be a positive person. It's really, really hard.
It's true.
And you're really struggling to see the good in the days that you're, struggling, especially the days that you're struggling. And so I think for me, the mindset really made a big difference. It actually improved not only like my relationship with myself, being able to trust myself, being able to say, you have the tools, you know what to do, and then even just having, the improvement with the relationship with my husband. There was a lot of caregiver fatigue. He was struggling. Our relationship was struggling when I came into this program, and we are 1,000 times better now. Our relationship is so good now. It's crazy, and just, I think, having that ability to leave fear on the table and throw it behind you is really huge. I don't have to be afraid of living anymore. I was afraid every day that I was going to get into something or do something that was actually going to make me die. Like I was going to have an anaphylactic reaction driving on the freeway and just die. Because nobody would know what to do, or, be in my office at work and nobody would know that, oh my goodness, well, she had an anaphylactic reaction and well, there she is on the floor. I mean, truly, it's scary. It can be a very scary world to live in. And so the mindset piece really helped me, for one, expand everything in my life. I mean, literally, I was in this teeny tiny little bubble. And so growth was huge in so many areas. Self-relationship, personal relationships, relationship with food, fear was such a big piece of where I started at.
I want to point out, she said that she was limiting herself down to 5 foods. And I always want to go to as to why, right? Is there some medical reason for it? Is there some food trauma around it? Why? And she said it was fear. So a really important concept, make note of this, everybody, is that the body always follows the mind. Okay. And you can have doctors tell you all they want about this pill, this way, that way. And my thing is this, if you don't change the mind first, your body will never follow. So it's really critical for me to understand, like, why are you down to 5 foods? Is it based on medical fact? Is it not? What is the reasoning behind it? And if it is fear that's leading you, you're going to get fear-based results. When you're scared of change, nothing changes. Do you guys hear that? When you're scared of change, nothing changes. So how do we turn fear into excitement, curiosity, right? That has to happen. And that's why for me, it's really critical to ask these questions, but to also work with people to change how they think. But change your thoughts, change your body, because your body's going to follow your mind. That's what I call a mindset to mind growth curriculum for change.
That's powerful. Very, very powerful. And, I know you had stopped working, Amie, and it had been about 9 months that you stopped working. That was at the same time that you were going through the program. And is that correct?
Yeah, I started the program while I was off during that. And I had been off for a couple of months before I started the program and jumped in probably about halfway through that leave. Yeah.
Okay. So what was it then? How long? Take us through that process of realizing, you know what? I've got my life back. I can go back to work.
Yeah. So, I ended up going through the entire program. Our program was fairly decently long. It was several months long. And then, from there, that was my launch pad. So I had some work to do still to get me to a point where I had, where I felt confident. And that was probably more of a mindset thing than anything, to feel confident enough to go back to work.
The results were consistent and you were always going to continue to feel that well.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's like, it was probably more, I needed to continue to work on a lot of that mindset, which, that's one of the beautiful things about this program is it's a launch pad. It's literally like the slingshot and pulling you backwards and then bink. Yeah. Yeah. Up a little higher, Maggie, up a little higher.
Trajectory.
So yeah, I mean, honestly, I did have some work that had to still be done. Your body is healing. Your body's healing. I had 20 years of illness under my belt. I was feeling a lot better, but I think for me to feel confident enough to go back to work, I think it was about 2 months after I ended the program that I went back to work, and I just went back, casually, and then realized very quickly that I got this.
I imagine your coworkers were like, who is this person? We're not having you put chairs out for her in the hallway. She's got energy. She can be on her feet all day. I mean, what was their reaction?
I started a whole new program in the hospital. What? I literally took on like this whole big project and started a whole new program there. And established like this huge program. So that was not something I would have ever signed myself up for prior to that. Just even the confidence level that I had just in my daily life and in my career from the mindset work that I did in the program was huge. Like it made me be like, yeah, I can do this. I did that. I can do this.
So here's something interesting. I think I'm picking on what you're saying here is like I think one of the biggest things that we do, well, the thing that we do that's really different from anybody else is we're an educational program. Mm-hmm. What that means is we take your data, we educate you, and we work with you to make sure that you're able to think through and troubleshoot through these scenarios so that you're gaining self-trust and confidence every single day as you work with us. And I'm serious when I tell people, this is your ticket to a master's degree on POTS or mast cell or whatever the diagnosis. This is your ticket to a master's degree in that. It really doesn't exist out there. So for me, the way to self-trust and self-confidence is through education, your own data, your own education, and also building your confidence by working with you to have better and better questions and answers to raise your level of mastery. That's the process. To me, that is who is doing that. And okay, Amy, and I'm going to ask everybody in the audience, do you know anybody else who's doing that in healthcare today to get people outcomes for impossible diagnoses like POTS and mast cell or autoimmune disease? No, because it doesn't exist. I had to create it.
And Amy, in your words, I'm curious to hear, how did you think this was so different working with Dr. Maggie as opposed to everything you had tried before? I mean, you mentioned this had been decades and you had spent many, many thousands of dollars. So why was it so different?
I think the biggest difference was it was educational. The time was spent. There was lots of time spent directly with me. It's holistic. You looked at every piece of my health. You didn't just pick out, oh, you have tachycardia. Let's just address that little piece right there. It was, yes, let's address everything. Because the truth is as a human, you are a multifaceted person. You have a lot going on. And especially if you've been sick for a long time, there's a lot going on under the surface that is never addressed in a 15-minute office visit because that's what you're allotted. And so for me, the holistic piece of it, bringing in the mindset, bringing in the food mapping, bringing in, just even the education piece of it. I had not learned half that stuff in nursing school. I didn't know half of that stuff.
I didn't learn any of that stuff in medical school. What are you talking about? Half the stuff. I didn't learn 1% of what I'm teaching now in medical school or in my 10 years of medical practice prior to becoming a functional medicine provider.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So I still have my original binder. I printed off everything when I went through this program. And the thing is you gave me a toolbox for life. Yep. I have a toolbox. I have a binder and it is my toolbox. And so if I get sick, if I pick up a virus and I'm not feeling good, or I'm like, oh, I'm starting to feel like maybe I'm just not feeling that great. I'm a little under the weather. All right, what do I need to do? Boom. I've got a binder that literally is my roadmap for life. It gives me the tools that I need to literally problem solve. I can't think of anything that I can't problem solve on here, because not only did you give me the tools to be able to figure things out for myself, you gave me the tools to figure out who I should bring into my team if
Yep.
I am not able to do it myself? Who do
Yeah.
you look for? How do you determine that that person is going to be able to help you?
Discernment. Yep.
Yeah, there's so much out there that how do you discern what's going to be valuable to you and what's going to give you the results that you're driving for?
We had a conversation with a couple earlier, even today. It was about discernment. I think that's a really strong word. Is how do you actually tell the difference between activities that are going to bring you results and activities that are not going to bring you results? Providers who know what they're talking about and providers that don't know what they're talking about. And I'm going to ask you guys this question out there. How would you discern a provider who knows what they're doing and is telling the truth and a provider who doesn't know they're doing or not telling the truth? How do you guys know the difference? Type in chat. I'm curious. Would you know the difference? It's the whole idea is gold versus fool's gold. How do you know the difference? And Amie referenced the fact that she has the binder. She's calling it the binder. Okay. And which is the tools that she has for life to make that discernment. How many of you would feel like you want that binder? Who wants that binder? Type in chat, the binder. And I'm curious out there, what would you use for discernment? And I'm going to ask Amie, how do you have discernment about doctors now, maybe doctors who know what they're talking about, who are telling the truth, right? Who know what they're doing and they're telling the truth. How do you know?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, you go ahead.
I think for me, one of the biggest things, coming into your program was seeing real people.
Boom.
Real people who had real results.
Boom.
And years later have maintained those results.
Boom.
Because the thing is lots of doctors who make you feel good for a while, but they don't give you the tools that you need to continue improving your health. My health, you gave me a 3-year plan when I started this program. You were like, this is just the beginning, honey. Like, you got a 3-year plan.
Now, wait till you see yourself in 3 years, I said.
Exactly. And, and even 5 years, the 2 years after that, 3 years, even better.
Yeah.
So I look at, you have how many case studies, how many people out there who are sitting in their bedrooms like me talking about what happened and how much their life has changed over the course of, even just, when they come out of the program versus, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. I mean, you'll have people 10 years down. You want to meet me back in 10 years? I'll come back.
We'll do this again 5 years from now.
I want to see your bedroom though.
You want me to paint my bedroom a different color?
And your follow-up with Amie.
Same place. No, I want her in the same place. No, it's so true. And we're getting so many great responses as well from people who are watching live. And Maggie, somebody said, maybe it's by finding a doctor in some cases who's gone through it. And I think that is an important distinction, is that Dr. Maggie has lived this. You spent years of your own life, Dr. Maggie, trying to figure out what was going on with your health and what was going on with the health of your family members as well. And that connection cannot be understated, really, truly, because it helped you develop this and you can relate to everybody.
Well, there's nothing that makes you a better teacher than teaching in your area of greatest suffering. Right. So, and I mean, I got sick, 36? Holy heck. It's almost 20 years ago that I got really sick. And so 20 plus years of dealing with these symptoms. I mean, I was where Amie was, where my career was going to be sidelined. I was in the middle of a divorce, pretty much in the middle of a near bankruptcy, sick as heck, and no one could help me. Not myself, not my colleagues, not any specialists they sent me to. Nobody could help me. My just so you know, Amie, even being a doctor, I got gaslit too. I was told that I need to take, birth control pills, antidepressants, and get therapy. And I say this all the time. I took all these things that I would prescribe in the past to people. I just got sicker, fatter, and meaner.
Not ideal.
No, but I also recognize at a certain point I'm at rock bottom. And if I don't become the agent of my own power of change, nobody's here to save me. I didn't have a Dr. Maggie back then. I didn't have a mentor that I can go to and just be like, hey, how the heck did you do this? Right? I didn't have that. So I had to create that. So yeah, it took a lot of my own smarts, a lot of my own learning, a lot of trial and error, but I was able to turn this around. So I mean, I had to build that faith in myself, but I think there's nothing like the power of mentorship. If you have success leaves clues, if you talk and meet with people who have successfully walked this path and solved the problem that you can't solve, that's the quickest, fastest way to go from point A to point B, because success leaves clues. Just ask them how they did it. So I think that's the beauty of, yes, physicians who go into functional medicine. Myself, who created these programs, came from the place where every one of you guys were at. And in that depths of suffering said, I got to figure a way out of this. And I did. And now I teach it, which is what I love doing.
And that brings us right back to that education piece. And that's what I was going to say, is that when you're trying to create that discernment, it's talking to those physicians. And if they don't have even an ounce of that education that you teach us, because so often we find after we graduate the program that we know more than our doctors, right? And so it's about finding those doctors who either are willing to work with you on as a partner in what you then know after you've graduated the Transform program, or by chance finding some who are on this same, path and journey to understanding what Dr. Maggie has learned herself. And those are the people that you want to try to work with. And with that education, Amie, go ahead, Maggie.
Well, here's the thing, I am trained and certified with IFM, right? Institute of Functional Medicine. And the funny thing is, I did that, 16 years after I figured things out, and certification and training became more widely available. But even as I sit and watch the training that they go through on food, I mean, they're teaching elimination diet, hormone balancing. They don't know. I'm sorry, but they don't know. The people that are teaching hormone balancing, some of them really don't have as much clinical experience, and they're not tying some of these dots together. Some of them are, but some of them are not. And I think what I find lacking is the providers who do learn some of these skills don't get the numbers and years of experience to be able to pinpoint it really fast and say, oh yeah, that's this pattern, that's that pattern, that's that pattern. And here's how it connects with the POTS. Here's how that connects with the mast cell. Here's, so it's an interesting thing. I think my expertise is being able to see patterns and tie things together that seem disconnected, right? But being able to teach you that skill, I think, is really important. I don't think that they're teaching that in any medical school, any RN program, or even any functional medicine training. So I love being able to teach that skill to everybody and anybody. And we have providers to come to get certified to actually teach these, because they're saying, we went through this training or that training, and nobody teaches hormones like you do, or no one is doing food mapping like you do. Trust me, we had Dr. Jason just talking about practicing functional medicine provider for 26 years, talking about how I thought I had food, sensitivities dealt with, but when I came and learned from you, how you actually pull in hot topics like digestion, non-allergy related food reactions, and accurate testing and accurate results, the role of genetics, vaccines, all these pieces in food mapping, this was news to me. This really upped my game like tenfold. So, it's not just patients that are experiencing food mapping like this, but providers are coming to us, asking us for training and saying this is leagues ahead of anything they've ever received anywhere else as the training they received to be doctors.
And yeah, you see it happen. It's clearly, you have many examples of this.
Yeah.
Amie, then because you're able to graduate with that knowledge yourself, I am so curious to hear how you have been able to apply it, because you work in the healthcare field. Has it made a difference for you as you're working with patients?
Absolutely. Because I can definitely see those patterns now too, because I've been trained how to look for them. And so there's many times where I've had patients who, were experiencing like significant anxiety, and, I'm looking at them, I'm like, yes, you haven't eaten in 10 hours. You had surgery.
We got some blood sugar problems.
You need to eat something. Like, you need to try food first. Usually it works. Usually it's pretty amazing how people feel so much better after they get a little food in their system. And I think too, I've had other family members who have gotten sick, had symptoms that were very, very similar to mine. I was able to, use the knowledge that I got and be like, okay, here's what you should be looking for. Here's what you need to have testing done on. Here's, the doctors that you should be going to. This is what you need to be doing. And I do have one particular very, very close relative who had to quit her job, and she's a nurse as well.
Similar situation. Was she dealing with POTS or what?
She was dealing with POTS as well. And, she kept texting me. She's like, I know you know. I'm like, yeah, I know. I do know. And so, I mean, honestly, just even, being a guiding light in her path, I don't think she would have gotten the care or the treatment. And she's back at work, by the way. Yeah, she's fine.
Oh yeah.
But because of the help that you were able to provide, I'm assuming it wasn't because of
It was directions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was able to, for one, have the education background now and be able to kind of see and look at her labs and be like, all right, well, here's what's kind of going on. You need to address this and this and this. And then help her also to find practitioners in our area, because she does live very close to me, that I know have, the ability to work with her. And I know they'll work with her. And I know that she can come to them and say, hey, here's what I've learned. Here's what I want to work on. Will you help me?
Yes. And I think that is such a special aspect of this program. And Dr. Maggie always says, bare minimum, it's helping 3 generations, because you're investing in the program for yourself, but you're able to help your generation, the generation below you, and that above you. And so what an investment, how these dollars are reaching quite far to transform not only your own life, but those around you as well. And you are proof of it with your own family and then with your patients as well. What lucky patients you have to have somebody with this knowledge and background that Dr. Maggie has educated.
Well, truth be told, our biggest source of people coming into all our programs, there's 2 sources. One source is happy people who've recovered, right? And they refer friends or family or people they care about to come into the program. And the other are providers. So we have actually lots of medical and functional medicine providers who are referring their patients to us to work with us because they want these problems solved for their clients. And they know that we know how to do that. So it's interesting. Referrals is the #1 entry into our programs.
That speaks volumes. People who have been there and who want to share the good news and say, I know who can help you. I know you feel like there's nobody out there, but I have somebody who can help you. So if there is somebody watching, Amie, who is, and I know there's many because I'm seeing the comments come up in this chat, that these people are frustrated. They feel like they're dealing with mast cell problems, digestive problems, POTS-like problems, and they aren't getting help. Maybe they're dealing with these for years like you were. What would you want to tell them about the Transform program?
Yeah, the Transform program for me definitely was the ticket to getting my life back. I know I wouldn't be where I'm at right now if I wouldn't have gone through the program, because I was literally given that ticket on the train to send me to the place where I'm at right now, and as a one-way shot. Like, I can't imagine what life would be like right now. I can't imagine where I'd be, how much more money I would have spent, only to probably be in the same situation, if not worse.
Yep.
The amount of knowledge that I gained from that program was worth more than my nursing degree, honestly. Yep. My nursing degree cost a lot more than the program. But the amount of knowledge that I have, and then the tools that you get for the rest of your life, you don't lose the knowledge. Like, you are given tools. You are given tools to be a healthy, happy human being. Get well, be well, stay well. And honestly, I can't imagine not having picked up that phone. I can't imagine what life would be like right now. Yeah. That would actually scare me.
Because you mentioned not only the amount of money you would have continued to spend on medical interventions and healthcare, but then also you weren't making any money either because you weren't able to work. So when you're looking at that investment, it's like, going the wrong way.
Yeah,
if you didn't turn this around. So, okay. Dr. Maggie, go ahead.
So I want to talk about what are the solutions. I want to just summarize some of these things, because #1 for me is when we're talking about mast cell and we're talking about POTS, I think for Amie, food mapping was a huge game changer for her. And I wanted to just do a quick teach right here as to what the food mapping system really is. And we didn't touch on this, and maybe Amie can shed some light on this, but when you look at the right upper corner, that is the food mapping data. That's testing. We need to accurately test for which foods is triggering the mast cell and the POTS. And the testing out there sucks, just letting you guys know. So we have to do accurate testing, which is what we do. But on the left upper corner, by the way, 100% of POTS cases, 100% of mast cell cases, people have bad digestion, period. And I didn't think, Amie, Can you allude to the fact of how big was not just the food allergy testing, but how big was digestion for you that you learned in the program? Was it playing a role in your POTS and mast cell?
Huge. The digestion training that I received and the guidance that I received around digestion and the guidance that I've continued to receive from your team through the years, I was at a point where I was on a ton of GI meds, like a ton of them. And none of them really made any difference. Really, truly, I'm still suffering. And so the training on digestion and learning about like how does A plus B equals C kind of thing? Well, why does this lead to this, lead to this, lead to this?
Yeah.
And it's all connected. And so learning, you know, I learned a lot from the nutrition standpoint as well as, you know, functional, like GI wise functionality, what was not working well for me or what, you know, and through the testing, we did testing for that too. And so, I mean, learning, you know, for me, like I needed a few supplements to get my body back in gear and to have it remember like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize that some of these digestive problems are genetic, meaning that they were born with it, and they can even trace back to when they were a kid and they already had some early symptoms associated with digestive problems that then built up to become a mast cell problem or a POTS problem. So this is why, for me, it's really important for people to understand that the food mapping system, I mean, we have a program called My Food Mapping Masterclass, involves proper testing, but learning about digestion. On the left lower corner, histamines. Okay, this is why we're talking about mast cell. We're talking about POTS. Histamines is completely relating with a ton of this is food reactions, and it causes symptoms of POTS and mast cell. And then finally, on the right lower corner is where if you can't digest your food and you're not understanding what you're allergic to and you're not pulling what you're allergic to and you're not reintroducing all the foods you need to eat, you are an empty tank in your nutrition. In your nutrient tank, zero, gas tank of zero. So how do you deal with fatigue, right? Brain fog, anxiety, depression, chronic fatigue? You can't. I mean, Amie was laying in her bed for what? How many weeks before you? What?
It was 4 months that I was
4 months laying in bed. But people end up there when they don't deal with digestion. They don't have accurate testing with the input, and they don't lower that histamine load. Then your nutrient tank is going to suck. So this is the basis of the food mapping system, and nobody is doing this on Earth. I'm just telling you guys, nobody is doing this on Earth. I had to create this. This is what's creating some of these huge outcomes for patients with POTS and mast cell. And we talked about digestion as well. And I just wanted to leave you guys with this. If you want to learn more about my Food Mapping Masterclass, which is one of our standalone programs to deal with digestion, here's a QR code. We're going to put a link in chat for you just to learn more about the program for my Food Mapping Masterclass. And if you're at all confused and you want to talk to one of us and you want to talk to somebody who knows what we're talking about, who's done this a million times, just book a call, because we do have a variety of different programs. We have programs that focus on hormone balancing. We have programs that focus on food. And we have the main Transform program that focuses on every aspect of what's going on with your issues. So talk with us, book a call with us so we get to know what's going on with you. And then we'll share the resources. We literally have a YouTube channel. By the way, all of you watching on YouTube right now, make sure you subscribe, with over 1,200 videos and trainings that I've done over the course of the last 6 years. And there's over 300 case studies just like Amie's to show you the path that success leaves clues. So I want to show you what success looks like and what the clues they've left. Amie literally is sharing with you what ended her POTS and mast cell 5 years later and going. So case studies is one of the most powerful ways to learn. So I invite all of you to visit our YouTube channel, type in a word or two of a symptom, my name, and it will pop up case study after case study, training after training. It's free to go learn from my YouTube channel. Hop over there and learn.
There's so much information. You've done so many trainings regarding any topic you could imagine as it relates to health and chronic illness, autoimmunity, mast cell, POTS, a lot of the things we're talking about tonight, and so much more. Amie, what an incredible transformation for you. What a new take on life. I mean, you got not only your life back, but from what it sounds like with improving your relationships, you got an even better life.
Oh, my life is crazy rich. I love it. I've literally created this life that I love. And it is because I have the tools to do that. And so no, I'm super grateful. Super grateful.
I'm gonna do hashtag crazy rich Amie right now.
Crazy rich Amie, the crazy rich life. That's what anybody could ever want. So everybody is celebrating you in the live chat right now and just congratulating you as well, because you're the model for what could be.
I'm not unique though. I'm just an everyday person who lives in a little tiny town of 400 people.
Well, and the thing is, you're not unique. And I'm going to say, are your results spectacular? Or like, are you a superstar with a super rare result from all the people that you've seen that have been through the program? Are your results extraordinary in the program?
No, I honestly, the group of people I went through the program with, I watched over the course of it. I had people who we started the program and they could barely talk. And by the end of the program, they were just like, yeah, I'm feeling great. I mean, literally, I've watched people lay on the floor during some of your trainings because
you were one of them, lady.
I know. I was in bed. It was so bad. It was so bad.
Yes, it was.
Come as you are. I did. I showed up as I was. It wasn't pretty.
But you did it. You got through it, and now you're no longer horizontal. You're able to be vertical and living your life in a much better way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Doing what I want, when I want, because I want to.
Boom.
And not having to not have to worry about anything.
Boom. Take that to Mayo, everybody. Yeah. All right, everybody, that is a wrap. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And if you guys in the chat could give Amie a big boom in chat, that'd be amazing. And if any of this hit home, you had one lesson that you learned from Amie's story, I would love for you to type one sentence with one lesson that you learned from Amie's story. And I would love to know, what do you think is your biggest obstacle? Like, we heard what Amie's obstacles were and how they overcame the problem. Tell me what obstacle you're facing. I read every comment. Okay. And I would love to give you how success leaves clues. Give me the one biggest obstacle you have, and I will take a look at that. We're going to answer you and share a resource with you how I would solve that problem. How about that? Take that to the make. All right, everybody. That is a wrap. I'm going to have all of us say good night and have a wonderful night. I hope you enjoyed it.
Congratulations, Amie. And thanks, everybody, for watching.
Bye.
Bye.